Greetings and hello. It is time for another T2 book review, and today I just finished my Christmas book, Marley, by John Clinch. This is a story, it's a prequel to the Charles Dickens Christmas story. Is that the name of the book? What's the original one called? One with Ebenezer Scrooge. Christmas Carol. Yeah. So, there's an alternate cover I'm going to post up here while I'm talking about it. This is pretty cool looking. So, it starts out, it's like written in the early 1800s in the style of Dickens. And at first, I found it to be a bit tedious. The fanciness of the prose and the writing and everything. But then, once the story got going, you kind of like it, and it starts getting addictive, and you really get into it. And it's like a darker side of... It's not like... I kept picturing him as Goofy from the Disney... the Disney Christmas classic with Ebenezer Scrooge. Was Ebenezer Scrooge in the Disney cartoon? Was he before DuckTales or after DuckTales? Because why would he have... Donald Duck's nephews. Why would he have nephews before Ebenezer Scrooge? Because he was Ebenezer's nephew? No, he wasn't Ebenezer's nephews. Donald was his nephew, right? I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. So, in the book, or in the Christmas Carol, Marley is the ghost of Christmas past. He's like the first ghost that visits him, right? That's why you got these chains on the cover. Because he always like rattled the chains and shit. And it does kind of give a nod to some of the things from the original story. But it goes back to like how they got rich. Because it doesn't really tell you in the Christmas Carol, I don't think, about how Scrooge and Marley got wealthy. Because it's always just Scrooge is like sitting at a desk, writing in a ledger, writing all these numbers. And I guess back then you didn't have like calculators and computers or anything. So it's like all about keeping detailed ledgers and adding all the interest and the as stuff like cruise, like you got to constantly be updating your ledgers with how much money you're making and transferring of titles and deeds and all these papers and all this paperwork, and just like it's a full-time job pretty much. And it doesn't even really talk about Bob Cratchit until like the end, because it's like he's getting so busy that he's gonna hire some guy to like be his clerk. And so it talks about like it's a lot about slaving, like the slave days, because this is the early 1800s. Like they had ships that were going back and forth from England to Africa and then to America and then back, and they were making money on off these slaving ships. That was their main thing. Everybody else was doing like molasses and rum, that kind of stuff, and they weren't making as much money as they were. So it's also about... So Ebenezer Scrooge has this woman named Belle, and she has a friend that's Ebenezer's sister named Fan. Fan and Belle are like really good friends. So Fan likes Marley, and Ebenezer's sister likes Marley, and Fan, that's Fan. Belle is like not related to any of them. So Belle likes Scrooge, Fan likes Marley. So they both kind of get engaged, sort of. But then Marley, he's real mysterious, and he's always like doing illegal shit. He's built his whole empire off of forgeries, and he has all these fake names and accounts, like these whole companies he's just created out of thin air. He's like a complete fraudster and stuff. So Fan kind of figures out early on that he's a bad guy, and she breaks it off with him, and she marries this guy, Captain Harry Balfour, who is the captain of the West Africa Corps ships that look for those slaving vessels, because this is after the Slave Trade Act came through and they made it kind of illegal to do slavery stuff. And then Belle kind of gave Ebenezer an ultimatum that he has to get out of the slaving business if she's going to marry him. So then he kind of devoted his whole, like, Marley promised him that he was going to get out of all these slaving accounts, but he didn't do it. He like secretly kept him going, and then Ebenezer found out, broke into his house, and he slowly starts kind of like undoing all of his fraud and stealing his money away from him. And Like, Marley is crazy good at forgeries and stuff like this. There's this whole scene about this ship called the Marley. That was a British ship. And he, like, takes this big box of, like, forgery materials, right? It's got all these different kinds of paints and toners and graphite and knives and erasers and, like, shading things. Like, it's like everything you can imagine, pretty much. So he takes this ship called the Marley, and he adds, like, an L onto it. But the Marley is, like, carved into the ship, and the L he adds to it, he, like, paints shadows behind the L and makes it look old, and he weathers it, you know, and he makes it look totally legit, like it's carved in there, but it's just painted on. So he rechristens this illegal ship, the Marley, into the Marielle. So he keeps going, like, trading slaves with it, and all these other stuffs he does. Like, he goes to this whorehouse a lot, and he uses the name Inspector Bucket. Like, he has really, like, stupid names for a lot of these companies. And Inspector Bucket was kind of like a dumb throwaway name, but it worked, and they believed him. And he's like, he's so good, he would go to the whorehouse, sleep with these whores, and they thought he was like a police officer, an inspector, and they would pay him to, like, I don't know, like, paying him off so he wouldn't report on him or something. I don't know. But he would go into the horse house and sleep with women and leave with money. He was so fucking good at it. So that's kind of his deal. He ended up getting syphilis from the horse, and that's how he died. And he also gave it to Fan at the end because he paints this really amazing picture of Fan that captures her essence of every kind of emotion and thing she's been through in her life somehow. It's like almost like he captured humankind itself. And, like, she ends up sleeping with him at the end. He gives her syphilis, and then I think she probably died from it because there's no cure for it back in those days. They give you, like, mercury and poison you with mercury, even. But, what was there's this one scene where he ends up paying a guy to kill that Captain Harry Balfour guy. Once he figures out, he finds his ship and he's questioning him on it, and he's talking about taking him to jail. So he pays a guy, or he tells him he's going to pay him. This is so dope. He has, like, this thing with invisible ink on it, and he acts like he got it, shows it to the guy, and it's the amount that they're going to pay him to burn the ship is so high. He's like, holy shit, that's crazy. I'll get all these friends. We'll burn the ship for you. I don't think he even really paid him. He was just so excited about the price. So that guy burns the ship, the evidence, gets caught, and he goes to, like, tell the guys, oh, this Inspector Bucket paid me to do it. And it's like, who the fuck's Inspector Bucket? We don't know any Inspector Bucket. That sounds ridiculous. And that guy gets hanged. Meanwhile, he has Captain Balfour killed by this other guy, and he shoots him right in the fucking throat, I think, with a pistol, and he pulls the bullet out for the, I don't know. But, like, he paid that guy. So he went to this woman who was, like, doing something illegal and found out where he was. He was at the graveyard. So the scene where he goes and finds that guy to do that, he's, like, robbing graves. He's, like, digging up people and, like, stealing their rings and shit. It really kind of was like a nod to Christmas Carol when Ghost of Christmas Future takes him to that graveyard and shows him his own grave and stuff. It kind of felt like that. And, is there anything else? Oh, there's this guy, Fred. Fred is Harry and Fan's kid that they have. And then Marley finally, when he starts raising this kid for him, kind of after he kills Harry off, he kind of realizes the joy of being a father and, like, wasted his life on, like, being a fraudster and, like, doing all this illegal stuff. And he kind of wishes he had been a father more. And he tries to, he's, like, vastly wealthy. He has a huge mansion. He has all this money, even though, like, Ebenezer's slowly, like, draining his funds and, like, taking all the money out of him and, like, ripping him back off again. He still has enough to, like, probably pay for that Fred guy's whole life, right, inheritance. So Ebenezer brings him the will for him to sign, and he, like, didn't even put him in there. He, like, left him out. So then Ebenezer steals all of his money and his house, I guess, at the end, and kind of starts doing that bah humbug thing. You can see how he, like, turned to evil over the course of time. And he ended up not marrying Belle, and Scrooge just kind of, he got so involved with getting out of the slave trade that it became, like, an obsession, and he's, like, super obsessed with numbers and accounting anyway. And it's almost like a superpower for him. And he got so into that, like, he didn't want to do anything else. So then Belle kind of didn't want anything to do with him. And I don't know. It's a pretty good book, I gotta say. The other book I've been reading, I call it my toilet book because I always read it when I'm on the toilet. It's also written in the 1800s, so pretty cool reading two books from the 1800s at the same time. Or, yeah, take place in the 1800s. So I'll probably talk about it next. And, yeah, that's Marley by John Clinch. Pretty good Christmas novel, since it's based around Christmas Story, Christmas Carol. I keep getting those mixed up. Christmas Story is the guy where he licks the pole and freezes his tongue to it, right? Red Ryder BB gun. Yeah. Check it out. Marley by John Clinch.